Hey, I want to talk to you about an issue that you might run into when you try to activate license on Cisco ASA. So Cisco has recently, not recently as in recently, but it's been a little while, but being enforced more often, something called Cisco Smart Accounts, which is a licensing account. You can go to that website and kind of watch those videos, but it's a software license system where you have an account, you are issued your licenses in there. In the old days, we would get the PAC or LIS files or LIC files rather, and import them into the boxes that we need to, and they went on their merry way. Well, now the devices that we have, switches, routers, and various other things, they need to go directly to Cisco to get a license that's been issued to them. They'll do a check-in, get a license issued to them, and things would go accordingly. There's a problem with this, which is that particular way to do licensing requires your private address devices to get direct internet access for even controlled ways, which never is a good idea. So Cisco has been very nice to say, hey, we understand that risk. We offer you something called Cisco Smart Software Manager Satellite Edition. And what that is a same thing as what you get with the Smart Software account or Cisco Smart account. There's so many words, so pardon me if I jumble one or two, but the new way of licensing accounts, which are called smart accounts, it works in the same way. And you pair your local on-prem box to talk to the main Cisco account that you have out in Cisco's domain. Things are synced up, and your licenses are synced up via something called a virtual account. So I have all of that set up here, and I have some Catalyst 9000 series switches that are all licensed properly, and things are working okay. And today, we attempted to license one of our ASAs. From what we just talked about the smart accounts that Cisco requires, the on-prem box is all here, and the information that it needs is inserted into this ASA as well. This is actually a Firepower 2110 is the model number, and it's been converted to run the ASA code, and it's functioning as that. But we need to license it so it can call home and get all the appropriate licenses that it needs. Um, by default, Cisco will give you a profile under the call home service called Cisco TAC-1. This is the one that not requires, but this is the one that goes out and talks to Cisco's centrally managed smart account, smart software licensing product that they offer. And Cisco allows us to create a profile of your choice. In this particular case, we're using profile license. And what you do is you insert the destination address to be one of your on-site box. So ours in this case is called license.cns.vcu.edu. And first question is, can you do DNS resolution? Oh, okay, as you see, I just did a ping over to license.cns.vcu.edu, and guess what? I got a bang, bang, bang. So that means that part is working. So we know DNS and IP basic connectivity is there. We've checked and verified the upstream ACLs are all okay from this box headed into where the other box happens to be. And lo and behold, when you try to do a test for the call home feature, you'll notice that immediately, so here I am kicking off the call home test profile license feature. And what that's going to do is test that profile that we created to see if it can call into that machine and can talk. And it says, hey, I'm sending the test message, but guess what? I'm failing due to a connect failed 35 message. Well, what does that mean? Is $1 million question, right? I scratched my head and said, I don't know what connect failed 35 means. It's not like an HTTP error message. So I started Googling, and Google will tell you various things, but the important part that everything that you read on Google was leading to was saying, hey, there's a good chance that you're not able to validate that certificate that came across to you, right? Because the ASA tried to make an HTTPS call. Now, Would it work if you just put HTTP instead of HTTPS in this case? The answer is yes. In our case, it worked. But the curiosity of mine was there to figure out why didn't HTTPS work and how do you fix it? How do you go about troubleshooting this, right? So I landed on this Cisco page right here. And this particular page, it was very helpful to understand what some of the things that the ASA was throwing back at us were. I just started searching with connect underscore failed parentheses 35, and it led me to this page along under a few of them. And one of the things that it spells out right away is that when you're doing exactly what we were doing, test profile license, right? That's what we're trying to do too. Um, look, it's going to tell us in the logs that certificate validation failed. No suitable trust point found to validate. And interesting enough, if I go back to our ASA and then do show logging, we will see something similar to that as well. And that message is right here. It says certificate validation failed, serial number 01, subject, Cisco licensing root CA. Interesting, right? So that's the CA that it wants. Now, how do I go get that CA? Where do I import? That was a gigantic head scratcher for me because you search for that and it leads you into so many places that you're like, what am I doing here? Even if you follow the instructions on this particular website, it's telling you to download something called iOS underscore core P7B. Well, this particular box doesn't have direct internet access, nor do I want it to in any fashion at this moment. So I said, okay, let me see if that's just a text file that's coming across. Well, no, it's not. It's a unique P7B. I'm not too familiar with what exactly does that do. So I continued um, my quest to find the certificate and how do we bring it. So next we'll talk about that part. We're going to continue our quest to find the CA certificate that we want and see if we can find out what it is, where it is, right? So just to recap, the certificate we're looking for is Cisco Licensing Root CA, right? So my first thought was, well, if I go to my on-prem certificate, on-prem smart software manager satellite box, what certificate does it give? So here I'm at that site. Of course, it's not secure because it's not a valid certificate. Well, what is that certificate? Okay, that's a local host. So that will tell you that at least the common name is not matching with what I am coming to from a URL point of view, right? And this leaves you into a goose chase that says, oh, I got to update this. And you'll come across a Cisco um, uh, support self-support forum where people are talking about this and they're saying that, hey, make sure that you go into your on-prem box and you have the common name section under security set to whatever the DNS name that you've given. And I'm running version 6.3 here and I've done that, yet I don't see it when I get to at this point. Well, I learned that this is a bit misleading, right? So this is the one that's coming to me on the admin page. The address that we tend to send our licensing devices, right? Like the ASA, where it's going to license is right here. It's going to license .cns.vc.edu in my case to this right here, right? To that particular URL. Interesting. Okay. So if I copy that and paste that into my browser, what type of certificate would I get is my question. So went in, pasted that in, and okay, you're going to see that it's a verified on my particular box because I've done some things and I'll lead into those. But here you'll notice that the certificate that it came to me was actually the one that I told it to under my common name on the box itself, which is license.cns.vc.edu. And it has been issued to me via a CA of TGSSL-CA. Wow, okay. So what appears to be is that right here in the top, you'll see that this is our local box, license.cns.vc.edu was issued by an intermediate of TGSSL-CA, and then that CA was signed by Cisco Licensing Root CA. Interesting. I think I'm headed in the right direction where I know now that I need to go get this TGSSL CA and Cisco Licensing Root CA. Now, I didn't feel brave enough to just go get some of these certs from Google. There are some out there, but I don't know how they got there, what happened to them, or any of those things. So what I'll show you is how I actually got to them by going to a folder which is on this license.cns.vc.edu box. It's already there. You just have to go get it, right? So to get there, you're going to have to do SSH into your box, right? To the on-prem box, right? The Smart Satellite Enhanced Edition on-prem. Thank you, Cisco, for making some of these names so complicated, at least for me, that they're tongue twisters and lead into your mind pausing and not getting what you wanted to say. Without further ado, so I'm logged in. First thing you got to do is sudo a shell of your favorite choice, bash shell, whatever that you like to do. Get in there, otherwise you won't get to the directory that you want to get to. What you will notice is that there's a folder. When you first installed this particular software package, you went through like a settings page or the install process, and you gave it a name, you set your admin password, you set your secret passwords, and all these other things that you needed to. And then after that, you just went into the web portal and did all the settings that you needed to make it work. Well, this box is actually running everything under Docker. And if we say sudo docker container ls, you will notice that there are 6 or so containers that are running on this box, and each one is serving a function that makes sense. Like you have one that's called front end, you have one that's called Tomcat, you have one called backend, one that's for IPv6 NAT. In our case, doesn't matter. And there's something called Redis. I don't know what that is, but that is here as well. And of course, I skipped right over it, the DB itself, the database that's maintaining all these things. In the past, with an appliance or a package like this from Cisco, you were able to kind of maneuver and poke around to see what was going on with them. But this one is done in a totally different way. It's new to me. I'm not a Docker expert by any means, so I kind of don't know where to go on how to look at some of these things. But I do see that this Docker container is running 443, 8443, and 80 as well, right? And that's all tied to the front end. And 8080, and yeah, I think that's the other port that's left to Tomcat, it says. Okay, fine. I was just poking around and trying to see what users are there. So, if I just go to CD home and just see what's over there, I see a folder called deployer. And from what I explored, it looks like the deployer folder is created during the install process, and there is a key folder that we need to get into. So if we go into CD deployer and do an ls on there, we'll see a folder called SSL. Hey, what could that be, right? Inside of SSL, you have these handful of files in there. The keys are, of course, your local machine key and something to do with product key. I assume those are the device private keys, and that's not what we want to see, but the one that is important for us, it's the one that has product.pem. That particular file contains all the certificates, the public side of them, that we want. So if I just say more on product.pem, here they are, right? And they are listed from best of my memory in the manner that I showed you here, right? If I go back in here and say certificate, they're listed like this. So first one is going to be for Cisco Licensing Root CA. The second one is going to be TGSSL. And then third one is your actual device itself, right? This ASA that we're trying to license does not know how to trust that CA. It doesn't know how to trust that CA. And without those two, that SSL connection is just not going to happen, right? So let's see what these certificates mean. All right. So a quick and easy way of how to see what each one of these certificates can do is copy them and copy between the begin certificate and the end certificate line, and then go to Google as always. And there's a very nice website out there uh, that I tend to use, but if you just search for certificate decoder, it can take you to a website like this one. And you go in and paste that certificate that you found and hit the decode button. And this thing is cool, right? And what it's going to tell me is that, hey, look, this is a common name of license.cns.vc.edu, right? That's my device cert. It was issued by TGSSL, right? That's what we needed as well. Here's my begin date and end date. So thank you, Cisco, for making this a very lengthy certificate so we can put this where we need to for getting it preloaded on switches and things of that nature. So thank you for doing that. So it's the first one. I was wrong earlier. The first one is a device cert. So let's look at the second one, see what that takes to, right? If we go back, I copy that, I highlight it, and paste it in, and say decode. And look at that. That's the mysterious TGSSL-CA. That's the one we need to import into our Cisco ASA box as a trust point. So that's a great find. And the last one, I assume, is going to be the CA root, the Cisco license one. So we'll copy that in memory as well and paste that in. And you can decode it just to see what's going on. And look at that. There is the Cisco licensing root CA. Now, how do we bring this into the Cisco ASA? Is the next question, right? Well, the good news is it's pretty straightforward. So if I log back into this box and enable, I'm in there, and same as before, if we do that test, call home, test, profile, license, we do that, it's still failing, right? So now what we're going to do is import these certificates. And the way you import them is by having, this particular method of typing them in. I'll bring it into that window right here. And what I've done is typed out. So earlier, if you remember, we copied those certificates from that file, right? Once I did, I brought them into, in this case, Google Docs. You can use your favorite text editor. And the commands that we need to issue are crypto CA trust point, and then you give this a free-form name of what you want it to be. I'm calling it as what was written out in that name that we decoded. Enrollment is terminal, CRL configure, crypto CA authenticate, and then the name, and then begin certificate, end certificate, and hit quit, right? So let's do that. So let's get the first one in. And I got that configuration page or those settings from over here. And if you were to Google just on bringing a trust point into Cisco ASA, you will find it across the internet as well, or off of any Cisco document that you are accessing. So there we go. Paste that in. And we say yes. Okay, so that certificate has been imported. That's excellent. let's get the next certificate. Oh, lost my place here. And this is the TGSSLCA that we need. Copy that. Control V, paste. And you have to answer yes. Now that one has been imported as well. And if we go in and do that test again, we should see, okay, let's type it in, call home test profile license. Ba-ba-da, that did it. And you will be able to license your box now without any worries via HTTPS, and everything will work as expected. So as long as those CAs are there, and as you saw, that they don't expire for a long while, so you should be okay. Just if you're curious on how to do the activation for this, I believe it is, let's see, it is smart, it was license smart register ID token. Put your token in there, and you can hit the force command after that if you like. And if you don't, I think it's nor here or there. And after you've done that part, your machine or your ASA will talk to your on-prem smart software box and get licensed, and then be all happy. I hope you found this to be helpful. It was a journey for me personally to go through this and kind of debug it to see why it wasn't working. We went through many avenues, and it finally gave me the answer that I needed and how to go get the CA certificates. So thank you, and have a good one.